I learned, and I have learned a lot from the failures, because made me resonate and visualize the entire value chain of those decisions. We are a group that is continuously challenging the status quo of our own domains. I'm a firm believer that the ideas, if are not able to be executed, are worthless, more in a corporate environment where the competitiveness is essential. So I try to set the vision, align the ambition, guarantee that everybody is understanding the purpose in the same way. So I'm like a free electron, jumping from left to right, up, down, and at the same time trying to keep the overall molecular or atom at the maximum speed moving to a certain target. No? And that has been my life so far during the last 20 years.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Dimitris Bountolos, who is the Group Chief Innovation and the Chief Information Officer of Ferrovial. A very warm welcome, Dimitris.
Thank you, Hendrik. It's a pleasure to be here with you and the CIONET community.
Dimitris, you have a transport and civil engineering degree from the University of Granada in Spain, and you have post degrees from IESE, ESADE, and Stanford University. Now, you started your career 20 years ago, and you worked for big brands like Iberia, NASA, LATAM Airlines, for smaller brands as well, like Zero to Infinity, and then in 2020, you joined Ferrovial as the Group Chief Information and Innovation Officer. Now, in fact, you have a triple personality almost, Dimitris. You have a background as a consultant, as an entrepreneur, and as a corporate executive, and I'm sure that we'll talk about all of these different aspects. So, in a nutshell, Dimitris, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Who are you? What's your background? And how did you arrive in this position as CIO? CIIO.
CIIO, double I. Yeah, I must admit that this is not very common, my professional journey so far. Those 20 years have been split in probably 5 stages. The first one, as any engineer, quite technical one, supported by the foundation of my degree, trying to explore the transport. I was involved in the engineering side of the transport, and from there I have preserved like a homogeneous track, always connected with the transport, with the logistic, in many different flight levels, I will say, because I've been involved in the ground transport, with linear infrastructure, typically airliners, different flight level, and the space environment in a more entrepreneurial way, exploring something that was not consolidated as a market yet in many territories. You have referred those 3 angles: consultancy, corporate environment, and also something that is not quite usual, which is the entrepreneurial environment, and has been a natural evolution. No? I sometimes wanted to feel the exposition to the risk, not having resources, not something very, very evident in the entrepreneurial way, more motivated by the idea, by the possibility to scale or to disrupt one particular field. In other stages, I felt the necessity to scale the impact of one plan or one transformation plan under the umbrella of a large group in a mature environment. Yep. In the consultancy, I was able to explore the capability to give different ideas to a bunch of clients, more or less through the curiosity that is something rooted in my own DNA, update continuously those answers and those questions in different territories. No? That's the way I've been so far, but at this moment I'm super connected with a long-term corporate challenge in Ferrovial.
And for those of us who don't know what company Ferrovial is, in 2 sentences, in a nutshell, what is it that Ferrovial does and what is it that they're very, very good at?
We are very good assessing the risk, and that this is a quite interesting capability in uncertainty times, no? Because what basically represent is a global infrastructure player that is able from the design and more conceptual stages define necessities, frame those necessities, structure those necessities through our construction brand, be able to construct and operate via the concessions and rotate the asset. The entire value chain of an asset in the public services domain, in particular about airport, linear infrastructure, waters. It's something that we perform globally, keeping sustainability as one of our vectors. We are in the mobility branch with different ventures. We are also in the energy transmission, and we have the construction company that independently is able to also perform quite complicated constructions, no? Specifically in tunnels and in heavy-duty works that are quite complicated regularly.
Yeah, so a big engineering group, construction engineering group. Can you give us some numbers? How many people, how many countries? Headquarters are in Madrid, I understand.
Yeah, we have headquarters in Madrid, in spite of the fact more than 85% of our global footprint and revenues are generated abroad, particularly in markets like UK, Poland, US and North America in general, including Canada. That's our natural footprint. Beyond that, we have right now in the group around 90,000 employees, including the service division that strategically was taking the decision to invest, but nowadays is still under our umbrella. Not contemplating that service is more or less 40,000 employees divided by all those regions, 6,000-7,000 depend of the year million euros in revenues. Market cap depend of the year. 2020 was a special one, around 20 billion. And always 1,200 concurrent construction sites in more than 18 countries. That's a global scale. Construction sites with 2,000, 3,000 employees, like the one we are implementing right now in UK, in Silvertown, one of the most complicated tunnels. So that's more or less the overall footprint of what we are regularly doing.
Wow. So a big international group. What was it, 26 billion market cap, so big group. Now, all our businesses are under pressure today. I mean, small businesses, large businesses. And so in your domain, what is the driver for change? What's the pressure that the business is under today at Ferrovial?
Well, I think there are a lot of commonalities independently of the sector. In particular, we have the demand and the offer. No? We rely a lot in airports. Heathrow Airport is one of our assets temporarily. While the vaccination will evolve, we are restricted by the regulation. How to anticipate the next stage and try to be as competitive as we were, and even more introducing the opportunity that everybody is facing is one of our challenges. The same in an environment where traffic is evolving, but new opportunities are coming through logistics, e-commerce, and so on. So what we are trying to do in the current momentum is to gain efficiency, guarantee that we are able to scale, be much more simple as a company, and that's one of my responsibility from the technology and the IT, simplify the landscape in order to be able to grow and capture new growth vectors in a seamless and reliable way, and interact with the community in a global scale, no? Using like the video conference that we are using, but introducing those concepts in an industrialized way for the entire business, no? And created handshakes between all of the business in order to be much more competitive than before. No?
Yeah. So many changes, and the pandemic has played on that as well. So I mean, a big boost in e-commerce, and then the airports that are not as active as they used to be, and so on. So many changes in all the different aspects of your business. And what are the main ways that Ferrovial is reacting to that? How does a big group like that, how do you stay agile and make sure that you can react what as needed under all these changes?
Well, first of all, trying to be connected with the community, with the areas where the history is changing and where everybody is trying to explore new growth opportunities. No, we took the decision, in particular in my domain, to launch a foresight community and platform in order to keep engaging with more tentacles with our shareholders and with the public domain, engaging with research centers and universities. Yesterday, indeed, I have the opportunity to sign our 5 years agreement with the MIT, where many of the research that we are using in order to understand the uncertainties of the near future could come through the research and the university. Introducing more experiments than ever, establishing more partners, because we believe that the future opportunities will come necessarily in an open environment where partners will represent an important piece of the equation of the solution. Introducing more transversal dynamics into the group. Also internally, diversity and transversality are strengths that will reinforce our capability to accelerate the time to market. No? So these last months have forced us to reinforce that in a much conscious way, introduce programs to guarantee that all the technical and business units teams are working together, and this is a never-ending goal. No? We have a lot of room for improvement, but we have speed up also a lot during these months.
Okay, now you have been recruited in July of 2020 as the Group Chief Information and Innovation Officer, which is of course an interesting combination. So what is the change that you have to make? What are you hired for in this in Ferrovial?
Yeah, every hire has a mandate, no? And I'm a person quite public in terms of the way I operate. No? I think the company, the sector, and the momentum require an inflection point. Construction and infrastructure are living a digitalization process. I'm a person that has been always flirting and jumping from the business to the technological angle, and what we need and what we are going to do, what we are doing is to accelerate that transition, no? Inoculating technology and digital capabilities across the entire company, introducing a much more data-driven mindset across the entire company, revitalizing our platforms, accelerating the journey to cloud, rethinking the processes from scratch, trying to adopt much more simple one and enhanced by the new technologies, and that as a group level, creating and reinforcing our center of excellence and try to improve our time to market and the capability to, over a resilient mode of work, be able to react if something in our environment is changing. No? That, as a corporate level, is a transversal movement that is fully enrooted in my mandate or in my goal as a whole.
Yeah. So I can imagine you're there now for less than a year, and so I can imagine that you've created your strategic plan to implement, and so that is the where you want to go is starting to become clear, and that now you start to execute your change plan, your transformation plan. Can you tell us a bit more in detail your plans?
So just arriving, I had to put in context my ideas and the mandate with the current strategic plan that it was under execution of the company, of the group. It was named Horizon 24. We were in the first year, quite a special year. It was not anticipated that the first year of the impulse would be like the one that we suffer. So my goal was to extract the foundational principle of that strategic plan, and as an analogy, create like a digital mirror, no? That we ended up naming Digital Horizon 24. That's the official framework that is supporting the transformation. That transformation obviously started from a very deep diagnostic, an ambition that is quite connected with the DNA of this company, put goals that are a bit far away from our current momentum, and defining the how a framework that could be leveraged along these next 4 or 5 years. No? That plan, Digital Horizon, is supported by data. We believe that we want to be an asset and data-driven data, supported by the cybersecurity that will protect that as a very valuable asset, and with 4 dimensions that could be very common in many of those transformation processes, platforms, and also the partners, and from the other side, the people. No, we necessarily have to introduce quite intensively change in the skills, in the tools, in the behaviors, and in the mindset. That angle, jointly with our colleagues of HR, is included also in the core of the transformation.
Yeah. So you're working on the processes, on the platforms, on the partnerships, and on your people. That are the key pillars of your plan. And so maybe let's pick one, because we can talk about that for hours and days about a big transformation like that. But let's take one aspect of that, because I believe that when you need to reinvent your business, and we all need to reinvent our business on a regular basis nowadays, when you try to reinvent a business, an important factor there is to reinvent the way that we work. And so I would like to discuss with you how you are reinventing, how Ferrovial is reinventing the way that they work. And so I want to focus on workplace, workforce, and workflow. So maybe let's talk about the workplace. And I mean, you have these people working around the globe, office workers, construction workers. So how are the places where people work? How is workplace being reorganized in your organization?
Well, the workplace, already even before the pandemic for us, was a vertical where we put a lot of attention for what you have mentioned. No? We have spread all of our employees, every construction site. It's like a company itself, connectivity, mobility, and the necessity to be able to exchange roles in a dynamic way, configure in a dramatic way our networks, our communication capabilities, and the way we interact with a much more corporate layer. So flexibility has been one of the key concepts that we have tried to introduce. The redefinition of the workplace and the hardware that we want to populate to all those areas has been reconfigured and redesigned. We are updating solution in order to be accessible without any type of constraint, interaction that will be universal, connectivity and network capabilities that will have to be transparent and seamless for the final users, introducing the trends of the practices. Our final goal is to, independently of the device, independently of the location, independently of the domain, any employees will be able to interact with the corporate type of capacities and with the local capacities in a seamless, completely transparent way, using mobile devices or using much more desktop devices that obviously have been progressively transformed and eradicated in those places where mobility is essential. No? That global challenge is taking shape, and I think we are responding quite well to that requirement.
Now, in workplace, in your environment, I can imagine that there's a big difference between people that work physically in construction and they need to be in the location and so on. So there, in my experience, construction in general has still a long way to go in digitalization. There's still a lot of manual work being done and so on and so on. Let's talk about that. Is your vision and plan to digitalize how construction is being done nowadays? And what's the vision of Ferrovial on that?
Yeah, construction is living a huge revolution. Connectivity, 5G is going to extrapolate what we have identified in the industry 4.0, the standard factories like the automotive. We are living an early stage implementation of those kind of capabilities in the construction site. Connected construction site is a site where all the processes, all the interaction are going to be digitally driven. from the reception of all of our goods at the level of the supply chain, for the execution of all of our construction units using technologies that years ago were impossible to be industrialized. We are talking about AI, we are talking about drones, we are talking about mobility, blockchain in order to have traceability of all the materials and certificates and so on, robotic, 3D printing, and AI from the perspective of forecast many of the variables that will improve the outcome and a more coherent planning compared with the execution. No? That is happening right now. And on top of that, we have the 4D, the XR, the virtual reality, the immersive reality, the augmented reality that is transferred to the final users using devices like the HoloLens, or using devices where with a simple picture and the geo-referentiation you are able to visualize what's going to be the final construction, compare, accelerated the revisions, and so on. Health and safety is also a dimension where we are improving because it's one of our critical goal and ambitions to guarantee that we are one of the most compelling companies in that particular field, and there are a lot of technology in order to track the present, in order to reduce the risk, thanks to identify the situational awareness and create alerts and socialize the potential risk in order to create a common understanding about the environment. No? So it's radically changed. It's fully connected with a digital inventory of assets that are more natural than ever.
So the construction workplaces are really completely modernized and they're going digital. What is your vision on, let's say, the office work? I mean, out of the tens of thousands of people that work at Ferrovial, many must be working in offices as well. Nowadays, working from home, many as well. So how do you see that in the future? What is your vision? Are we still going to be needing all these big offices? How do you think we will be working together in the future?
Of course. So we have verified in our own skin through the pandemic that home working, remote working, dynamic teams could survive, could be competitive and could deliver, which is the most important. No? Is that sustainable? This is one of the question marks that everybody is trying to stress. We are also analyzing that from the long-term engagement, common purpose and sense of community, we need to apply or bet for a hybrid type of work. For the onboarding of the new teams, for the discovery phases, for the ideation stages where we need to bring that magic in the shape of ideas. Remote work is not extracting the maximum potential, but at the same time, we believe that the opportunity of collaborating with partners and with employees that are abroad, it's something that has been normalized. And we need to take that advantage. It's something that is happening. We have employees in several countries allocated in teams that from scratch belong to different regions, and that is giving us diverse perspective and a sense of 360 view of the reality that is reinforcing the ideas and stretching all the potential hurdles. No? And we want to preserve that for sure in the future because it's a valuable asset that is paying off.
Okay, let's move to the second topic, and that is workforce. I mean, you have tens of thousands of people, and maybe let's focus in on the IT teams. So can you describe a little bit how IT and digital is organized at Ferrovial? How big is it? And how do you see your IT workforce going to change in the future?
So currently, in the setup that Ferrovial has, IT is a centralized division that is represented under my umbrella. We have different type of asset, subsidiaries, company that depending on the size, they have their own autonomy. Like for example, Heathrow, with those kind of business, we have another type of interaction and relationship. But from the overall perspective, IT is a central division. that is giving the support in the more core and fundamental capabilities, and also developing new capabilities, much more oriented in products and platforms. We are engaging on a daily basis with all business. We don't believe that we are providers. We are more and more interacting on a daily basis with them like partners, creating from the origin of the ideas to the execution of the portfolio transversal teams. We are structured by domains, we are structured by towers of services, and we have 3 verticals in the particular shape of Ferrovial. We have application and system, more connected with the fundamental core capabilities. We have a digital hub that is a digital factory that is able to develop products and platforms, in particular in certain technologies, very specialized in advanced analytic and machine learning, I will say. And we have the innovation department, also under my umbrella, that is stimulating through the Center of Excellence the best practices and trying to bring to the entire community that edge vision that we want to introduce and accelerate through experimentation in the portfolio. Beyond those 3, we have more technical areas like the cybersecurity, architecture, and data, technology that is in charge of, as you can imagine. On top of that, a digital transformation vertical that is trying to tie all the knots and maintain the programs aligned and on track.
Now, how big is that in total? How many people are we talking about, IT and digital and innovation?
It's difficult if we add, but I will say more than 300, 400, adding the subsidiaries, adding areas where they have autonomy. We are quite conscious about to grow according to our necessities. I would say that the core team could be around 150 employees. They are very high skilled and dedicated. I'm really proud of all of them, because to control of our footprint with that site is something remarkable, and they are doing really, really incredible things in that respect.
And I can imagine that traditionally all your IT and digital teams were, and because you have a central IT, that they were together in Madrid, close in the office together, but that is not necessary anymore. Now you can recruit from around the world and find top talent around the world. What is your vision on that? How do you see the development of IT teams changing now with the new reality that we are living in?
Yeah, I think the paradigm is changing. The necessity to be everybody around a core is not anymore a strong requirement. We already had people and teams spread across our footprint. We have employees of my division in US. The Center of Excellence are headed by people that are in UK. We have a lot of partners that are working abroad. And the dilemma right now is which are the minimum roles and dynamics that we want to preserve around the headquarters, which are the interaction that are still meaningful to be sustained around where all the shareholders from the business perspective are. And we believe that, for example, the product owners, technical leads, the product managers that are more trying to scan the opportunities and trying to avoid hurdles and keep pushing in order to accelerate the execution, most probably it would be very convenient to be preserved around where the corporate environment are, but the rest of the teams, we are much more flexible than ever, preserving what I mentioned before, that the team dynamics have to be hybrid, otherwise we have serious doubts about the possibility to sustain in the long-term run.
Okay, so we talked about workplace, we talked about the workforce. Let's talk about workflow and how we can take next steps in automating the workflows in our corporates. I think we're at a moment where we are evolving into more automated enterprises and maybe into fully automated enterprises. So let's talk a bit about robots, about software robots. Do you believe in a robot for everybody? And how do you look at at software robots and robotic process automation at the moment?
We believe in automation. We believe in the introduction of robot in many senses. It's something that we have been doing for years, and something that we have already accelerated due to the pandemic and the remote working and so on. No? We are very conscious about the necessity at the same time to know which is happening behind the scenes. A robot like a black box that is giving an outcome without questioning who has programmed that behavior is still valid. Do we have boundary conditions that are exactly the same like the ones that we use at the beginning of that robotization of automation? It's something that we are continually putting over the table as a mandatory framework that we need to preserve. So to transform the processes through automation, it's something that is going to happen and is accelerated right now. To preserve a deep knowledge more than probably before, because we are able to dedicate more time to understand the key steps of those processes and how to continuously improve those processes through automation. It's something that we are reinforcing and will necessarily require hybrid teams, though that will introduce the fingers into the models and those that know the business, not that magical blended environment that will accelerate the improvement. For sure, automation is part of our journey.
And can you give us an idea of how many robot FTEs are working today at Ferrovial?
Well, it's difficult because they don't eat, they don't rest, as you know, and
you don't need to pay them a monthly salary.
We pay a certain amount to the providers or to our partners, no. Yeah. But the answer is that the figure is gaining exponential ratios. We are introducing robotic and automation almost in each division of the company, not just starting in the financial, for the treasury or the cross-check of all the accounts and so on. Every division has understood that all those repeatable tasks that during years were not able to extract or maximize value because we were technically wasting time to do things that more or less were the same, have put focus in automation. On top of automation, we are obsessed about augmentation. We don't want to replicate what we are doing in a digital or automatic way. We want to break down the silos and extract opportunities where machine learning models, AI, will improve that early stage automated progress. No? So I would say we have hundreds of examples that could represent also hundreds of potential employees, high skills, well trained, very, very committed with the task. In this case, even being a repeatable task. No?
And could you give an example of where you combine today already robots with artificial intelligence of machine learning? What kind of cases? What are the domains where you can implement that?
For example, in the treasury division under the financial department, in order to consolidate many of the economic statements and economic files that are extracted from different ERP systems, in the HR, integrating the payroll of many companies and many countries, aggregating the format and validating a simple way, in the digitalization of the invoices or in the service requirements across all the construction site, introducing OCR in the middle of the process in order to guarantee that the reception of a material is no longer more an administrative task. It's something that is in a seamless way injected in our system. In the more operational field, reviewing the sensor of many of our linear infrastructure, integrating all those sensors in compiled reports. There are hundreds of examples where we are not just treating data and conforming the data in a much more structured way. We are validating thresholds, we are creating alerts, we are injecting information, we are giving reports in a in a quite fancy way without human interaction. Almost all areas are affected in a positive way.
And do you see, I mean, there's a trend as well, a very interesting trend at the moment where that we can call citizens development. Where people have, I mean, all office workers have a spreadsheet and they automate parts of some processes with spreadsheets, for instance. But do you see also an opportunity for citizens development where everybody has their own robots, or where they use no-code tools or low-code tools? What's your vision on that?
I think it's a trend that is going to gain a lot of flexibility to the entire company, and it's a natural evolution. Years ago, to develop a macro under the Excel environment was something perceived like a difficult concept, more to certain areas, and right now it's something achieved and as a commodity. We are identifying how many software as a service are creating quite object-oriented and very seamless way to manipulate and interact with data and create ad hoc processes, flows, validation that are robust enough, covered by the security policies and the standard, and also able to scale, which is something in many occasions very, very important. To democratize that, transferring to the final user the opportunity to define their own solutions. It's something that is coming progressively with targeted group, with pilots, and I believe that frameworks like the one we have with the Power Apps, or with the flows that, in our case, the environment of Microsoft is offering, is facilitating to scale that, because everybody's testing and getting their own examples without feeling fear about the outcome.
And Dimitris, can you explain us the tool set that you're using for RPA and automation?
Yeah, we are investing a lot in exploring all the options. This is a segment where a lot of incumbents are trying to introduce new solutions. We are using UiPath, which is a very consolidated and solid solution. We are using more niche solutions that are in an exploratory stage, quite promising, and I would say that pushing UiPath and many others to keep developing their capabilities. We are putting focus in solution more in the low-code area, not just automation like Appians and frameworks of Salesforce. This is exciting, because this is a segment where there are coming a lot of new players, and the famous Magic Quadrant of Gartner is continually reshaping according to the requirements of the market.
Now there's a potential danger with all these tools that we create new spaghettis and so on, and that there could be security threats and inefficiencies and so on. So have you put technology and processes in place to ensure that automation is effectively managed and controlled in the workforce?
That's a great angle that we need to be conscious, because we are in the stage, I will say, like in the gold mine, while fever, we are expanding, and if we don't expand, preserving integrity, frameworks, and a hierarchical structure that is not the same that to restrict the possibility to explore, is to preserve a level of coherence and a level of the group, we could get that spaghetti environment or a quite difficult traceable environment. We are investing in defining the boundaries of that playground, trying to introduce the minimum overall policies and requirements in order to let degrees of freedom to the teams, but for sure controlling the expansion. That's mandatory if you want to preserve for the long-term integrity and reliability.
Yeah. So we discussed how Ferrovial is reinventing its business. We discussed how you reinvent work within the group. Let's talk a little bit more about your responsibilities. I mean, you're responsible for IT, and you explained how IT is organized in different groups and so on. But what is, of course, interesting is that you're also responsible for innovation. So can you give us your vision on that? How the hell do you organize innovation in a big group like that? What's your approach there?
Yeah, it's gigantic challenge because in Ferrovial, innovation is encoded in the DNA of each employee. Despite of the fact it sounds like a cliche. We are a group that is continuously challenging the status quo of our own domains. And one of the roles and responsibilities to keep that stimulus alive and to extract and maximize the outcome with focused challenges and with a network of innovators that is growing and growing across the business. Innovation is a central responsibility with dozens of satellites and several centers of excellence that are trying to create a network of intra-entrepreneurs. We launch challenges, we have a serial initiative where we want to capture and receive inputs in order to unlock and to improve the existing constraint. There are local innovation in different fields in terms of how to improve tools, how to introduce new services, how to develop new potential businesses. My teams are gathering and structuring that very close to the business. We have also another branch that is growing and gaining momentum for years, which is the Open Innovation. Open Innovation Division is in charge of connecting with the environment. The more structured one, like the universities, research center all over the world, also with the startups, in order to understand which are the options that could accelerate our implementation. We are regularly engaging and interacting with dozens of startups in different fields, and that division is interacting with them, trying to facilitate their understanding, how to facilitate to work with a company that has also legacy areas not fully accommodated to the requirements of a startup. The Center of Excellence that I mentioned before, that represent as a beacon the body of knowledge about certain domains that for us are very critical, like mobility, digital infrastructure, asset management, blockchain, 3D printing, and those areas are always on the edge, trying to understand what is going on, and at the same time bringing in the portfolio use cases to experiment and to accelerate implementation at the scale of those technologies as a group level.
Now, I'm a big believer that innovation happens at the edge, at the borders of the organization, where one organization touches the other. And so I understand that you work together with universities and startups and with partners in an ecosystem is really where a lot of the innovation happens. Can you maybe give an example of where a partnership really is a driver for innovation in your company?
We have a lot. I will mention, because it's something that we have recently revisiting, is our long-term partnership with the MIT on several areas. I'm professor. We have been exploring things like the evolution of the mobility in urban areas and how to develop simulators that later on have been configured like product that we are already using in businesses like the car sharing business that we have in Madrid and Paris, the capturing of data points using LiDARs and the generation of 3D models from a research point of view. Right now it's a capability that is accelerating the creation of 3D models in our construction sites. The creation of disinfectant anti-COVID using one of our internal research centers, more focused in the bituminous layers of the road. They changed dramatically the scope temporarily of the capabilities in order to put focus over the COVID, and what we ended up was with a product that is massively used, commercially used, in order to disinfect surfaces. So there are a lot of stories that from the concept and from the origin of one idea, with the support of the research center and university, have been converted in a product that is right now delivering in a scale way.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about your role. I mean, you're brought in as a change maker in this organization. So how would you describe the role of the CIO at Ferrovial today, and maybe compare it how it was 10 years ago? And it must be day and night, I can imagine. So how What is your role fundamentally today?
Well, my role fundamentally is to preserve that balance, in the both hemispheres of that brain. IT and innovation are not two type of fluids that are in a common way merged on a daily basis. So I need to guarantee that that age that we need to introduce regularly in order to be competitive is supported by the evolution of the decision that will require a much more time of maturity, because are connected with infrastructure, are connected with the platform, are connected with the hosting of those solutions. So to orchestrate that, to guarantee that we have framework with enough perspective in order to not take decision based with the sense of urgency, and at the same time guarantee that we are enabling the accelerated adoption of the new generation of solution. It's something that will require a coherent perspective and structure. I'm in the middle, trying to join forces with the support of the business. That's something that is I think evident in my track record. I not bringing a technological angle or a pure IT angle. I've been in both sides of the table during a lot of my professional stages. I feel that I understand quite well how technology and digitalization could improve the outcomes, and from that perspective my team is closely with the business partners and the business unit, trying to accelerate the implementation of those changes that at the end will be the same, that the generation of value, in an exploratory way, and reducing the risk, which is something that I need also to preserve, reduce the size and introduce the risking concept in the implementation of new ideas or in the implementation of huge transformative more IT chapters or plans.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about yourself. I mean, you are the leader of innovation, you're the leader of digitalization at Ferrovial. What is your leadership style? How would you describe your leadership style, and what do you think your teams say about you when you're not around, when they talk about you?
I hope that good words, but I'm a quite expansive person that is trying also to bridge the strategy with execution. I'm a firm believer that the ideas, if are not able to be executed, are worthless, more in a corporate environment where the competitiveness and to be always in shape is essential. So I think I have a quite more or less oil capability to continually frame the perspective from the strategic angle to the execution. That means that I have to be involved in the implementation. I need, and I try to be updated about what is happening, and at the same time capture the perspective to guarantee that we are in the right path. So I try to not just inspire, set the vision, align the ambition, guarantee that everybody is understanding the purpose in the same way, give a lot of degrees of freedom and autonomy, otherwise that will represent a bottleneck, and I don't want to convert myself in a bottleneck, but be able to introduce correction, be able to modify paths if we identify that expansion is not going in the right direction. So I'm like a free electron, jumping from left to right, up, down, and at the same time trying to keep the overall molecular or atom at the maximum speed moving to certain target. And that has been my life so far during the last 20 years.
Now, like we said in the introduction, you have three different aspects of your personality, at least I would say. And one is the corporate executive, the corporate leader. The other one is the consultant. You have a McKinsey background and so on. How is it that your consultant experience helps you in driving change at Ferrovial?
Well, I think that part of my experience has been remarkable and very valuable in order to help me frame the problems, structure the complexity, identify the options, size the opportunities, and at the same time define at each stage which could be the potential next step. That's not probably the easy part, or the most difficult part. It's one of the pieces that I think is part of my capabilities that are always under development and growing. No? Without the execution, that structural, more consultant-oriented capabilities or asset will be not enough in order to deliver. No, but I really enjoy facing a new complex type of challenge, introducing structure, ideas, and frameworks to simplify that complexity and to make it digestible to the entire organization.
Okay. Another aspect of your personality is your entrepreneurship. And I'm really impressed by that. I mean, you have a big corporate job, background as a consultant, but you also run several restaurants. Tell us about that. How can you run several restaurants and quite good ones? So, what's the story there?
Well, the story, I think, is a funny one, at least for the audience. No, at some point, I was in the IAG group, running, among other things, the catering and the supply chain. I had the intention, probably I was younger, that I could change completely the way our guests were able to eat on board of our airliners. But that's very difficult because that's not about food, as everybody could imagine. You know? It's about technology, it's about the supply chain, it's about to guarantee that every olive could represent 500,000. If you want to change dramatically the way you are eating and you want to introduce more food, you need to modify the supply chain and be much more efficient. No? And I was living under the frustration of reducing the scope because technical changes are less fast than the other type of changes. No? And at that moment, someone came to me, knocked the door through LinkedIn, which is amazing, put on the table one business model based in Japanese food. I did not think a lot. I did not apply the consultancy potential skill at that moment. It was much more gut feeling. I thought it was a quite interesting niche, non-traditional Japanese food in Europe, and I personally jumped with other partners, and like a hobby, we started to run restaurants, 3 at a moment, 2 at this moment under COVID. I'm quite proud that they are working, and there are 30 employees and young professionals that are developing their own careers in that field. Every time we come, we introduce obviously technology, now more than ever, user experience, design, and that is something that's very also rooted in my own DNA, no? The customer experience and the possibility to impact in the desires of the final user through the interaction of technology and a very conscious design since the beginning.
So as a hobby with your partner, you started 3 Japanese restaurants and one even as a Michelin star. Well,
we almost got to the Michelin star. We were listed in the book. We were fighting for the Michelin star in 2018 and 2019. And finally, we didn't get it, and it was a semi-fiasco, no? But we were close, and that was really exciting, no? From scratch to get one Japanese Michelin star in one restaurant after 2 years in Madrid, not in that was like a challenge, no? Like a weekend challenge, very exciting for the entire team.
Okay, no, I'm very impressed by that. So let's talk a bit more about your underlying personality. And as you know, in our leadership deep dive interviews, we use the MBTI personality types as a way to discuss strengths and weaknesses and how you are wired as a leader and as a person. And you have shared that your personality type, you are a campaigner, an ENFP. So you're more extroverted, intuitive, more on the emotional feeling side and perceiving, prospecting personality. And people with this personality tend to embrace big ideas and actions that reflect a sense of hope and goodwill towards others. And their vibrant energy can flow in many directions, and I think that's clear in your case, right?
Yeah, I was surprised every time anybody make that kind of test, no? It's like a mirror where you contrast your own energy and radioactivity, no, with the results. And Since a lot of years, I took the decision to be genuinely the best version of myself. No? Do not shy things that I believe at that moment that probably were connected with my essence and my weakness at the same time. Be also very visible in order to not try to compensate. No? So I bring ideas to the table. I probably reduce complexity. I want to, through the storytelling, create narratives that will be able to embrace by many of the people involved in the challenge, and introduce resilience as a global mindset towards a common purpose. That sounds like a critical concept or crazy endeavor, no? But that's the way I pass the days and the weeks, flowing the hours. I'm feeling that I'm contributing more, no? And it's really exciting. That's the way I am.
Yep. So people with your personality, typically their strengths are that they're curious, that they are observant, energetic, enthusiastic, that they are excellent in communication, that they know how to relax, and that they are very popular and friendly. Which of these is most, say, well, that's 100% me?
I would say curiosity. Curiosity is the mother of all my illness. No, every time you need to focus in one particular topic and dig a bit, you identify that there are networks of connection that could be part of the new solutions. No, so to keep the focus while at the same time preserve that potential strength, curiosity. No, ask the right question in order to get the right answer. No, and create that circle. Around that is really important, and curious about many things, and that curiosity is potentially letting me to connect dots that with training are not evident, and that's something that I'm trying to inoculate to all my team members, you know, to ask the right question, to keep digging, to explore new trends, to identify early signals that could be in a few months or years the anchors for new opportunities, no? And I've been doing that my entire life, no? In the personal and in the professional also territory.
Now you're also very creative. I mean, for you, design, user experience, how things, the visualization of technology is important. But also, I mean, you have published several books. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a hobby that at a certain point, through friends, family, colleagues, they forced me to do something that was not in my plan, no? To make it public and to publish. In particular, there are books about photography that I digitally combine in order to create canvas that could explore feelings, could explore different perceptions, and so on. No? And you have said, for me, the visual and non-verbal communication, the stimulus with the final users, even not talking about a B2C environment, in a B2B where you have thousands of users that are interacting with a UI, or they are interacting with a process that has a visual context, it's really important. No? We eat from the eyes, we need to keep balance, we need to, from the beauty, guarantee that there is an embrace, traction around that. For me, it's something very solid in my professional life and complemented in my personal spare time through a hobby that is giving me a lot of reward in that respect.
Yeah, I looked into your books. They're quite impressive. You have developed a very personal style of photography. Now, Dimitris, not everybody also have their development areas, their potential weaknesses. Let's talk about that a bit. People with your ENFP personality, potential weaknesses are poor practical skills, difficult to focus, overthinking things too much, getting stressed easily, highly emotional. Which of these do you recognize, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I'm going to start from those that I do not recognize, being really pragmatic. So I'm get excited, but I'm not emotional. I'm a person that preserve the rationalism in all my ideas. Get excited with the potential. Get excited with the impact, with the ambition of the transformation. I'm not get frustrated. I'm very pragmatic. Otherwise, never I would have been director of Madrid Barajas Airport, where you have an operational environment with thousands of flights per day, and things are not able to be completely controlled. No? Having said that, my weaknesses, I think, are quite evident if you follow that scan, no? That type of archetypes. If I do not force myself, or if I do not put the right pieces in the equation in order to guarantee focus and concrete traction, I could lose the track. And I reinforce that, guaranteeing that in my team always have a person that has a strength that isn't rooted in their own way of being, to focus and to conclude and to create a program that will preserve consistency. Is something very, very solid. No? That's something that I try always to introduce and combine what could be a weakness with a strength. At the same time, that diversity of thought, if it's not followed by the entire group of people around me, could create diverse traction without the size and the impact that will be required. No? So to continually calibrate the size of the ongoing actions in order to reduce the funnel and to prioritize the portfolio, it's something that with method and with the support of external members of the team, I always try to introduce in order to control what are weaknesses that I'm really aware. I'm not going to change, despite of my daily effort. No?
Let's talk a bit about your family. I mean, you are from Greek. You're a combination of Greek and Spanish, and you're married to a lady who is Canadian and Dutch, and you have 2 children, still small, 1 and 3 years old. So they're raised in potentially 4 different languages, right? Just quite something.
Yeah, it's
now,
crazy.
Let's talk about what do you want to pass on to your children? What are the values that you want to see your children grow up in, and that you want to leave as a legacy with them? Yeah,
that's a quite important question. No? Indeed, I have 2 daughters. I think that's important, because being 2 little girls that would be 2 future superwomen in an environment like this, project a lot the desires in a wider spectrum. No? So I'm trying to encourage them, 1 and 3, as you can imagine, my tools and my type of influence, the ability to question everything what is happening around them. Not give for granted what is transferred, so preserve curiosity and the capability to generate ideas as a valuable asset that could be next to all of them along the years, now evolving and getting much more sophisticated and so on. Another thing, due to that diverse family that we have, inoculate diversity as one of the most valuable conditions that could enrich corporate dynamic, professional dynamic, friendship, etc. No? And on top of that, being girls, not letting them to accept or to be allocated in positions where their own capabilities will be under question mark because of the gender. That's something that seems to be very obvious, but it's still depending of the area, of the field, and so on. So I'm every day trying to encourage them to be brave, to express themselves without any kind of shyness, and to be bold and ambitious in their own goals.
Now you're still a young man, but you already have a very full life. What is the best thing that ever happened to you?
Wow, best thing beyond the birth of my little babies and an incredible family, I think to have the fortune to be in many occasions in the right moment, in the right location, and with the possibility to choose options. If I analyze my professional and my personal life, those crossroads where I had the opportunity to decide, independently of the difficulties of those decisions, I had options. And when you have options, and the second one probably is not the best actually, I like the first one, but you have still alternative to take the more complicated one or the less uncertain one. It's something that it was easier because I had the perspective that there was a B plan always, and that is the result of the fortune, a bit of serendipity, but my career has been full of these kind of moments, and I'm very fortunate and glad of that happened to me.
So you're very fortunate, but I can imagine that also some bad things have happened to you. So what is the worst things that have happened to you, or what was your most brilliant failure? Tell us a bit about your dark side and how did you manage that?
Yeah, I think we have only a few minutes till the end, so I need to try to sort those that are more relevant because I have hundreds more most probably. At the beginning of my career, I was a micromanager. I was focusing into the details in such a level that I was restricting the process to flow and to be embraced by more people. I detect pretty late that I was not the one that was able only to create traction. So my traction is not able to be the one putting the horses in front, because otherwise I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough time, and I will be the bottleneck. And I remember a lot of moments where I definitely did not let to grow at the speed and with the scope certain members of my team, because I was not competing, but I was leading, because I have the perception wrongly that I was not better but much more precise. What I have to review, I need to, instead of being mentoring, I was overlapping their roles with my obsession in that micromanager. Another example was the ambition, many occasions, has to be size and balance with the pragmatism and the reality of the environment. Not all the environment are able to digest all the changes with the same speed and so on. And from a rational and emotional perspective, I was much more optimistic, and I have failures where we implemented a lot of technology in an industrial environment with the necessity to be used intensively by thousands of users, and X days or weeks or months later realized that nobody was using those solutions. Gave me frustration and a lot of ideas to change the narrative and the validation before scaling anything. I learned, and I have learned a lot, much more, and that's also another cliche from the failures, because made me resonate, visualize the entire value chain of those decisions. And every time I fail, I'm constructive and try to be very, very systematic in dissecting the process and understanding why in the first person that happened, and how I could introduce changes drastically or cosmetically in the new iteration.
Yeah. Now, Dimitris, we're coming to the end of this very interesting interview, and what comes to mind if I hear your stories is that you're really truly a Renaissance man. I mean, you are into gastronomy, you're into photography, into innovation, into digital. You have consulting, entrepreneurship, corporate executive, leadership. You combine many things. You have built highways in Afghanistan, you have led airports, and so on. So you have an amazing combination of experiences. So with all that, what would be the advice that you would give to your younger self, or let's say to somebody who has the ambition of also becoming a top CIO in a top group like Ferrovial? What's the advice to young professionals that are ambitious?
Well, I think in a quite humble way, and giving advice is always a challenge and a responsibility, because there is no a straight line that could be replicated of what I live or my experience. In my own perspective and experience, ask the right question, not being shy, independently of your experience, independently of how mature you are in any of the organization you are right now trying to introduce your impact. Feel since the first day that you have a CEO mindset, that you are able to introduce a change, you are able to unify convictions and to be present in an active way, and to be present introducing your own belief in a structure, rational or even emotional, with your own capabilities. Another is to explore. Don't be shy jumping from one position to the other. If you are able to identify a narrative or a complementary angle that at the end will reinforce your own profile. No? Those motorways in Afghanistan, or that airport, or that consultancy, for me, at the end reinforce areas that probably make me more solid right now and will make me more solid in the future. No? To find a line that will be perfectly drawn and without any deviation, in my belief, it's something that has not to be the goal, has to be the result. If that's the result, no, but the trend and the vector and the orientation is much more important. And the third one is to embrace the team around you in a vertical or horizontal without any bias. The diversity and the capability to reinforce what you are and what the team is doing through diverse and complementary team, it's something that since the earlier stage you need to identify as an asset. Protect that asset, reinforce that asset, and try to contribute to become a reality in the organization you are.
Dimitris, I would like to thank you for sharing all your stories, your visions, your expertise in this interview, and I would like to thank you for your time. It was really a pleasure to meet you here remotely, and I look forward to an opportunity for us having a nice Japanese dinner together in one of your restaurants in Madrid. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Hendrik and the entire team for the opportunity. It has been really an interesting conversation, and for sure next time I will promise that we will be able to have a Japanese without sake, or just to cheer and make a campaign together next time, hopefully in Madrid. Thank you for the opportunity.
I look forward to that. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.